Check. 1, 2, 3.
The D.
Brief.
This is the D brief.
Your guide to Detroit.
Your guide to Detroit's
arts and entertainment scene.
This is the D.
Brief.
Hey, welcome to the show. I'm Seth Ressler.
And I'm Becky Scarcello.
And joining us today, we have Sadie Quagliotto. She is of Hip in Detroit. This is a lifestyle website that you have a partner that you do it with.
Yes. Oh, my partner is Christy Labs. We have been best friends since we were 11. Oh. And she's awesome. She does the communications department at Warren TV.
Oh, cool.
So she's the one that makes all these videos and, really kind of makes the blog.
That's awesome. Does blogging bring you closer together or?
It's done both over the years. It's done both. But, Christy's the closest I've ever had to a sister. So if we've made it through high school and all those other things, I think we can make it through this.
You're probably home free.
Hopefully.
So the two of you together were going out, doing fun things in Detroit and you were kind of the source for people already,
People just
right?
kept always saying, like, how do you always know about that show? 8 years ago, there was something fun to do every night, but you kind of had to know about the thing to do. And, now there's things to do all the time and it's crazy. But we started with something called Solid Dude's Kitchen. It was this really cool cooking show. And we went to an event at the casino. We had a good time. We took some pictures. We wrote a review. And ever since then, we've had a post every day.
That's awesome. Very good.
Nice. Well, we're glad you're joining us. Hang out. Have a good time.
Thank you.
All right, Becky, let's start it off with the trivia question.
Okay. You guys ready?
Yes.
That's not more about Groundhog Day. That was just a one-day thing. So for the rest of the week, I wanted to focus on Orchestra Hall because Orchestra Hall just turned 100 years old. October 1919, it was built. So it's 100 years old now. It only incidentally took 5 months to build, which is crazy, especially at that time, how fast it went up. But this whole season at the DSO is a celebration. There's even an exhibit at the Detroit Historical Museum that's going on now through April 26th. It's called 100 Years of Music, Magic, and Community. So lots of great stuff going on, Orchestra Hall. So I wanted to ask you this question. It did not house the Detroit Symphony Orchestra from 1941 to 1951, but there was still stuff going on in Orchestra Hall. What was it called in that time period? I have choices for you.
1941 to 1951.
Yes, it was called something else. Was it A, Detroit Jazz Theater, B, the Paradise Theater, or C, the Music Hall?
I believe it was the Paradise Theater.
Give me those choices again.
Detroit Jazz Theater, Paradise Theater, or the Music Hall?
Detroit Jazz Theater seems very limiting. We have a music hall now, but I don't know if there's a
I know I've written about this and my brain's not, I know I've written this fact before, so I'm just taking a guess. Paradise Theater sounds
You're
like...
You're going with Paradise Theater?
Yeah.
All right, I'll yeah, sure. I have no idea.
Ding, ding, ding. You're
yeah,
correct.
well, okay, I thought I wrote about that.
Yes. Paradise Valley was at the time. And if you can name a famous jazz artist from around that time, I bet you they played there. So just throw out some jazz artists.
I could not do that.
You probably could.
I don't know. Louis Armstrong. Who would have... Yeah.
He played there?
My dad loved him.
Think along
Miles Davis? I don't know.
He did play there.
Okay.
Duke Ellington.
Oh, there you go. That's a good one.
Yeah. Billie Holiday. All the greats. It was a thriving jazz performance venue and a heart of the African-American community.
But for 10 years, they changed the name.
The DSO was still active, but they played somewhere else.
So they took the name with them.
They've done that a lot. Like the Senate Theater has changed a million times through its history.
Wait,
like
the
what
Senate
it was
went
focused
to Washington,
on.
No, what's a...
Yeah, it's true. And the Symphony, Detroit Symphony played at Ford Auditorium for lots of years, the Masonic Temple, different places, just how it went.
Wow.
So Sadie, I wanted to ask you, you were talking a little bit about how Hip in Detroit started. So Detroit's dramatically different.
Yeah.
8 years ago to now. What would you kind of summarize are the positives and the negatives.
Well, I know my first negative. That's the first. I'm going right for negative.
Hey, why
you
not?
used to be able to park everywhere. You used to
heck
be able
yes.
to just throw your car wherever you wanted, anywhere.
No consequence.
Boom.
That has changed just in the 5 years that I've been here.
It's
I
been
noticed
about
that.
5 years of
Yeah.
that happening. They started
Agreed.
with those like $45 tickets, and they really enforced them. And they enforced them even in places that were not downtown. You know, all the little burb areas, and yeah, that's something that drives me crazy because I like to hop around.
Me too.
And
Go
it's too
several
hard.
places.
So, you know, sometimes I got to take Ubers here and leave a car someplace. And I have lots of plans for this. Also, I won't pay that much money to park. So
I know.
I'm not doing $45 over by any of these,
No.
whatever. I don't even make that much money. I don't know how you would do that. So that's the biggest negative. The two biggest positives, in my opinion, are the art scene, which I think had always been really important and really strong here. But in the last 10 years, people have invested in it. It started with like places like Red Bull House of Art and, you know, the Library Street Gallery and Tangent Gallery, even like just giving, you know, money into the area, promoting artists, giving them the materials, the resources, the places to show their stuff.
The murals in the market.
Yes,
type of
murals in
festivals.
1X
Yep.
Run, all these
Yep.
people just bringing artists, supporting artists, giving them outlet. And then, you know, the restaurant scene. Like you used to be able to go a few places to eat in the city. It was real fancy or just small places you knew of. But now I would say we have one of the most thriving scenes I've ever seen. You know, I've gone everywhere in the US at least. And like it happened so fast. And it's been really interesting. I mean, it's very much ranged in price and type, and everybody seems to kind of be competing a little bit for, you know, their angle or whatever. So it's really fun, but it's really hard to keep up with.
Yes, it
So
is.
we used to have a list on the website, and it was all the bands, all the restaurants, you know, and it was easy, like once a month for me and Christy to sit down and say, okay, what opened up recently? Check a few pages, check a few papers, make sure we remembered everything. You can't do that anymore. So we have actually switched this year to top 3 restaurants, top 3 bands right now, and we're just going to keep switching it out. And
Yeah,
we're actually doing a
that's amazing.
playlist instead of, you know, you couldn't keep up with it. So I think those are like the biggest changes. There's just a lot more happening, and people move here, which is weird to me.
Yeah.
I guess, I mean, you're that person.
Look, I'll tell you that when I took this job here, the deal that I made with my bosses was I'm here for 6 months and then I'm out. And this
Look at you now.
I'll be honest, Detroit was not on my short list of places to go.
I don't think it was on a lot of people.
It really wasn't. And so I was, going to bounce. And I like this place. You know, I mean, my last 2 cities before this were the Bay Area and Boston. And so when I saw what you can get an apartment for around here, I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? This is fantastic. But it's got all the amenities of a big city. You know, whether you're into major sports, all the big concerts come through. You've got the restaurants, you know, which I think is come up in the last couple of years. I
Yeah,
don't
that's
think it was
definitely the
there.
last 3 or 4.
Yeah, it was not there when I first moved here. It's
No.
gotten a lot better. I mean, it's
And with the
gonna change.
competition, I think it starts to eliminate the mediocre stuff. Like before, even if something opened up and it wasn't even that good, you'd still go because you're like, oh, great.
But even a lot of our restaurants like Green Dot or like I just talked about Michigan in Trouble, those are people who moved back. Those are Detroiters
Yes.
who left the city and came back, which is Playground Detroit and Assemble and all these awesome places that have been popping up are people who grew up here, maybe went to other cities to go to college and do different stuff and then heard the buzz and were
wanted
like,
to be a
all
part
right.
of it.
And they decided to come back and invest where they grew up.
That's so true. Max Hardy was one of those too. I mean, he cooked for Oprah and super, sports stars all over the country decided to come back.
So you have to keep your finger on the pulse of everything that's going on around the city. Has the sources that you use to do that changed over the years? I mean, whether it's media, whether it's other influencers or other bloggers.
Yeah, I mean, generally it's still word of mouth for me, you know, to hear what I'm always trying to do is be the first person there.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, you know, once any of the Metro Detroits or Eater Detroit or any of these great other outlets have it, I want it before then. So a lot of times it's like, you know, so-and-so's sister has opened up this place down the road. And I'm like, cool, can you message her and ask me if me and Christy can stop by, that kind of thing. So it's still, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's who you know. And I kind of know everyone because I stayed here the whole time. And, you know, it's just like, cool, yeah. I always find it's funny too. Sometimes I'll go to something in the formal sense, like I'll get a press release and I'll go, like when Blake's first opened up there, whatever. I walked in, I knew everybody on the Blake's team team. I knew the guys who were doing all their marketing stuff. They're all my friends. And I was like, oh, I didn't even realize you guys were involved in this. So that's the other cool thing about Detroit is as big as it gets, it's a very small city too. And everybody knows everybody. And, I find that people are really willing to help you out and share a story with you. And I think it's a very supportive place. So
I agree. And I think one thing that's changed is I always went out and did things in the city when it wasn't popular. And I feel like in the past I had to convince people to come. Like I was always sort of selling like, no, it's really okay. Like we'll be safe and it'll be fun.
Do you know what my favorite thing is? Okay, I've been doing this for 8 years and my mom will call me and she'll be like, I was watching the news and they were talking about this place. She literally did this to me like 2 weeks ago, Bucharest. And she's like, have you ever heard of that? Have you ever been there?
Why, yes, I
And
have.
I'm like, you would never try that if I asked you to try that. First of all, yes, I've been eating there for a long time, Mom. It used to be in this bar that I used to get drunk at.
Yes,
I used to stumble
Park
across
Bar.
the street and order it from a thing, but that's a whole different lifetime ago. Like, it was very funny to me that my mom will now see it on the news and she'll ask me, or like when I was doing V Market or Detroit Urban Craft Fair, she'll see that on the news now. You know, she'll see that on Channel 4, Channel 7. She'll be like, have you heard of this? And I'm like, yes,
I've
Mom.
been there
I
all
actually do the
along.
social media for that. DIY festival this year. My brother asked me about it. And it's like, 10, 12 years into it. But now I feel like it's become these things that our friends started, restaurants, events, whatever. They've become staples that the community now recognizes as like, oh, that happens all the time, right? We have
so
this festival in Royal Oak all the time. We have this festival in Ferndale. And these things legit did not exist 10 years ago.
No.
Or were in their infancy.
Right. Or just starting and people had to be sort of dragged there.
So what do you think it's going to look like 10 years from now?
I don't know. Sometimes it scares me because you said rent. It's getting crazy in certain areas. I don't like that I can't go to a lot of stuff. Like things sell out. Like it's definitely more of like your New York, your bigger city feel on stuff. So I hope it doesn't lose like that community feel that it's always had to me. But I mean, anything that would help bring jobs and stuff here to me is great. And I think there are some people doing it right. So hopefully they prosper and grow.
And I think another thing that will change is the connectivity. It's already changing where you can walk from different areas to the next, where before it was pockets. You just go to this destination and just there. Now the connectivity along Woodward and stuff is really growing. So I think that's going to keep on filling in.
I agree with you.
All right, guys, let's get into some weekend recommendations. Becky, starting with you. What you telling people to do this weekend?
Yeah, so there was a party last year that I didn't know about. I just heard about it this year. It's the second annual. It's Over the Moon Lunar New Year Party. So I think this is cool because, all this stuff with the coronavirus, it's horrible. Like China has had to halt so many of their celebrations and everything because they don't want people traveling. So it's kind of cool that this is happening here where Asian Americans are celebrated, but everyone's welcome. Anyone can go. It's happening this Friday, February 7th at the Whiskey Factory at the outskirts of Eastern Market. So Lunar New Year fell on January 25th this year, but it's celebrated for 15 days. So this will sort of fall on the end of that. And, just all the typical stuff you'd find at a party. Great food, music, people, and it should be really cool. So you can get tickets on Eventbrite for this Over the Moon Lunar New Year party.
Nice. What about you, Sadie?
Okay, so I met this artist recently named Kelly Golden, and she paints signs, right? So she did all the wording in that Bolero, the new bowling alley that opened in Royal Oak.
Yeah.
And I kind of discovered that sign painting is an art in itself, and that she basically put together a show this weekend called Signs Galore, and it's kind of to show that the way people paint signs in your city very much is your city and kind of defines what your city looks like. So she's curated a collection of different signs through the history of Detroit. And I just think it's going to be really interesting. I've never seen somebody do an art show like that.
I would love to see something like that.
Yeah,
you ever been to Vegas and seen the neon?
Yeah, we just went in December. We went for the Intersect Festival and I went to the Neon Museum.
Yeah, the
I went
Neon
for
Museum,
Gaga,
which is
and I
always
went.
Tim
old
Burton has an
signs
exhibit
that
there.
aren't in use anymore, and it's fascinating to look at how it's done. I would love to see that for other cities.
Yeah, and there's a big history of sign painting in Detroit. A lot of them you can still see the old ones on old buildings.
Well,
that,
like
were
you mentioned
uncovered.
Willis Show Bar before, they had a sign that was behind when they started ripping down
Yes.
paint, and
Yes.
Armageddon
Beach
Beach
Party.
Party. They had a sign on their wall when they started ripping out the paint. So there is a deep history in our city.
There's the book about that was
Yeah,
written
Robert
by,
Allen.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's
yeah.
very cool. And the KO Gallery is in a great little spot in Hamtramck.
Yep.
Just a cool spot to go check
And
out.
it starts at 7 p.m. And I believe it's free. I couldn't find a price. So I think it's free.
Yes. I've been following that. It would be free for sure.
Good. We like free.
Yeah.
Hey, the Oscars are happening this Sunday night, and the Detroit Film Theater over at the DIA is doing something. They've been doing this for a couple years now. They are showing all 10 of the short films, both animated and live action, in one showcase. So you can just go in one sitting and watch all the nominees. I think it's a really cool way to do it.
Yeah, I bought my tickets. I would advise people, if you're hearing this and want to go, look now.
Yeah, the tickets go fast.
There was a couple days that were already sold out.
The good news is that they're doing this through the 16th. So even
Yes.
if you don't get to see them before the Oscars, you can see them afterwards.
And then you'll go in knowing which one
Yeah,
won.
and you'll know which one won. They actually also do a short documentary showcase as well. That's like 3.5 hours in length.
A different time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, but they got that too. Sadie from Hip in Detroit, thank you so much for dropping by the show again today. We're lucky to have you here all week.
Thank you so much for having me. This is really fun.
Good.
Hey, want to let you know that we have an Alexa skill. If you want to listen on your Amazon Echo or your Amazon Dot, all you have to do is say, Alexa, enable the Debrief podcast, and then you can listen. It's real easy. Becky, let's close out with another song.
Yeah, I would love to. And by the way, there's something new. All the songs we've had on the show the last 2 weeks, and then I'll be updating it every week. We now have a playlist that you can go right to and hear all the songs that we've played so far. Just go to the website, thedmix.com. And I'll send you right to Spotify to get that. So the song I have today is by perhaps Detroit's best known blues rock trio, the Muggs. They just released a brand new album in January, Slave to Sound. And this track is called Patent Pending. So it's kind of a whimsical song about what if they invented a bunch of stuff? So they're ideas for inventions. And it was recorded at the Hamtramck Sound Studios. And if you want to see them live, they play all over town. But the next show is February 15th at Caju Cafe. So this is Patent Pending.
Tony Muggs, by the way, has a really fascinating story that he told to us. He was on the podcast a while back. So
Yes.
If you want to know more about them, if you like this song, go check out that episode.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Until tomorrow, Detroit's moving.
Keep up.
your guide to Detroit's arts and entertainment scene.